In the summer before going into the first grade, I took my first set of swimming lessons. I remember a lot about those first swimming lessons. One of the things I remember the most is at the end of every session, all of us little ones would line up at the beginning of the diving board. We got the opportunity to jump off the diving board into the deep end. So I remember vividly the first time. So I walk out the diving board, and there on the end, just a little old diving board. The lessons were out at the Holiday Inn swimming pool over by Interstate 7. That's kind of the little podunk place I grew up in. So here I am on this little cheap diving board, looking down, and it's very deep. And there's a guy treading water down there. And I immediately recognize that this is an incredibly sketchy situation. Because he can't touch the bottom. How is he going to save me if he can't touch the bottom? So I said, no thank you. And I turned and I walked all the way back to the beginning of the diving board and stepped down, and all the little ones, whoop, 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 whoop. I don't remember how many weeks I had in the swimming lessons, but every week I would happily walk out to the end of the board, turn and look down, see that same sketchy guy down there, and go, not today. And I'd go back. Now, I don't remember this conversation, but my mother tells me, she asked me after a couple of weeks, why won't you jump off the diving board? And I said, being a lawyer's son, it's not going to end the world if I don't jump off the diving board. So she let it go. So, last week of swimming lessons. I walk out to the end of the diving board, I look down, still deep, same sketchy guy, and then I glance up and I see among all the mothers and brothers and sisters of the little swimmers, there was my dad. So I jumped. I went under, I came up, the sketchy guy came near me, I kind of shouldered him off, and I found my way to the ladder. And up I went, and that was it. I don't remember having any revelation or sense of joy. I just, today's the day, and I jumped. I don't remember this conversation either, but my mother asked me, she says, that evening, why did you choose to jump off the diving board? And I said to her, I didn't want Dad to think I was afraid. I didn't want Dad to think I was afraid. Fear. I don't think anyone in this room or anywhere would deny the central role of fear in our lives. In large part, we can kind of judge the quality of our life by how much or how little fear we have and how we deal with it. The passage that we had today from the scripture of the Founding Master is one that you've heard me quote a lot. I go back to this time and time again. And I do it because it lays out this incredible question related to fear that I go back to and back to, not to answer any questions about fear, but to help me check how I deal with my fear. I have developed some ways to check myself. Am I dealing with my fear in a way that I think is constructive and valuable and effective? So he says, sentient beings use their minds while being attached to joy and anger, sorrow, or happiness, thus bringing much harm to themselves and to others. Bodhisattvas use their minds while transcending joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness. Thus, they do not bring harm to themselves or to others. The Buddhas use joy and anger, sorrow, and happiness as if they were his servants, thus bringing much benefit to themselves and to others. The thing about that I have no idea. I don't know why. First of all, fear should be in this. Fear, to me, is one of the great obstacles. Greed, anger, lust, fear. So I use this in terms of fear. What interests me so much about this is I had always thought for years and years that in some way I was transcending fear and transcending anger. But only the Bodhisattvas transcend. There is a higher level of dealing with my fear. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is a reaction to, if transcendence isn't the end, what does that mean about how I deal with my fear? So I have 3 things that I go back to whenever I'm confronting my fear. 1, do I accept my fear? 2, am I getting at the root of my fear? And 3, who is it that is living with fear in this moment? I think the idea of transcending fear points to a mistake I make. Do I see my practice as a method to escape fear? Am I misguided if I'm seeking a life that has no fear? The ability to use these emotions for the good of others and myself tells me I cannot think about escaping or suppressing or transcending fear, especially, but any uncomfortable feeling or situation or event from my past or potential event in the future. Escape is certainly not a healthy way for me to deal with this. So that's the first step I take. If I have an impulse to push it away or suppress it, I stop and I try to clear my mind and let it in. I ask myself, can I look at this fear without trying to resolve it? Can I try to not bring in anecdotes like courage or reason? Because that is just being enslaved by fear to try to build courage as a defense. I recognize by trying to make countermeasures, I am enslaving myself to the very thing I'm trying to escape from. I think that's a dead end. If I say I have to control it, if I have to get rid of it, if I have to understand it, it all is just another way of saying I am trying to escape it, and that is not a good first step for me. So when I am gripped by fear, I go back to the Founding Master's simple thing, am I taking this as an opportunity to practice? And what's harder still, am I grateful for this opportunity to practice? I struggle and struggle to have gratitude for fear. I'm so happy to be afraid. Thank you. Can I have some more? So when I'm gripped by my fear, can I find the opportunity to open up to it and be truly grateful for it? Step 1. Step 2, am I getting at the root of my fear? This is a really difficult one because some of my best tools that have served me well over my life are not getting at the root. And I'll explain why. You remember, I don't know if you remember, I shouldn't say you remember. There is a passage, it's in Doubts Clarified, where a disciple of the founding master is out and about, and he's talking with someone who's not a member, and the member begins questioning him about the founding master's claim to understand everything about human principles, everything about human affairs and universal principles. And this person presses him about, well, he doesn't know how to do this, he doesn't know how to do that. Isn't it inconsistent or untruthful to claim that he has a complete understanding of human affairs and universal principles? And the answer is, by fundamentals, we mean the root. Whatever the object, if one understands the root, then the branches and the leaves will also be included. I've taken that as a major precept in how I handle my practice. You've heard me say it time and time again. It's just my mind doing what it does. That is my way to remind myself to return to the root. I'm talking about, am I able to, in this moment, perceive my fear not in its different forms and manifestations, but as a root cause within myself? So, I can be afraid of illness. I can be afraid of death. I can be afraid of not enough money. I can be afraid of what people think. If I'm thinking in those terms, I am out in the leaves, trying like a little squirrel, trying to shuffle through every single leaf of fear, and I will die before I can deal with every single leaf. I have to go to the root. Also, it's another way to escape. If I deal with the minutiae of the details of this particular fear, I never go inside and say, what is happening in my mind? What am I holding on to? In what way am I responsible for the conditions that are bringing this fear into my life? If I don't get to the root, I will never be comfortable with having fear come into my life. The other thing about dealing with the leaves is it brings our conscious intellectual mind into play immediately. And that really leads to me to the third one. Who is it that is living with fear in this moment? I have a timeless self, and I have a phenomenal self. I have a self that lives in the past, the present, and the future. And I have my eternal self that is timeless. When I find my intellectual mind engaging in moments of fear, I can only deal with it in the past and the future. The intellectual mind cannot live in the present. Because in the present you experience something, then your mind kicks in and has an idea about it. And by that time you're in a different moment. So that moment that you have the idea about is gone. So how can I use a dead, gone mind to deal with a present experience? And that's what I mean when I say, who is living with the fear in this moment? Is it my eternal mind, or am I letting my phenomenal mind take over? Which is the easy thing to do. It's a thing that's always been successful for me all my life. But I have to guard against it. Because fear is a living thing that exists only here and only now. I have a choice. I can observe it with a dead entity, which is my intellectual mind, the entity that only can be applied to the past, that's trapped by the past, that is fearful of the future, unknown what's going on in the future, thinks it can predict the future in complete error. That tool is completely incapable of dealing with my fear right here and right now. So where does that leave me? What am I actually doing? I'm not sure if I can answer that. I just know when I'm doing it. When I live with my fear in this moment, it becomes familiar to me. I become more comfortable with it. I don't attach anything extra to it. I don't tie it to something in the past. Oh, well, if blah, 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 blah. It's not my fault because my blah, blah, blah. Or I don't tie it to the future. If only I can da, 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 then no fear. Now, we know that never is true. Fear finds something to cling to, and our mind attaches it. When we feel fear purely, it is a momentary phenomenon. The minute we attach an idea to it, we've given it a reason to exist, and it clings, and then it's given a place in our past, and it's given a place in our future. I can't explain how I'm doing it right now. I don't know if I'm doing it right. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the third question is really important for me. Who is it that is living with fear in this moment? Because that's all that matters in this moment. So the last part of this, the fourth thing that I didn't even put a question to because I don't know where to go with it, is the Buddha, and we are all Buddhas, whether we believe it or not. A Buddha uses all its emotions, including fear, to benefit oneself and to benefit others. How? What does that even mean? How do I use fear? Fear uses me, in my experience. That's one guess. I'm working on how do I use my fear rather than letting it use me. The other is, how does my fear bring benefit to everyone? I'll give you one little hint of what I'm working on. I'm going to talk about death, so if you need to, outside if you need to, just for a second. It's a concern that we deal with all the time. We know it's coming. We just hope not now. But there's a constant dread associated with that knowledge. Sometimes that dread flares into out-and-out fear or terror. This is true of everyone in the world. I think that's the root of compassion, which is the beginnings of working for the benefit of everyone. We all have this dread somewhere. Some in others it's more pronounced than others, but no one is completely without it. So what more do we need to bind us together in unity, brotherhood, sisterhood, and to help each other? What else is necessary other than this one truth that we share, this one fundamental thing? And in addition to that, this is the icing on the cake. Our tendency is to think we're the only one who feels it. Certainly I'm the only one that feels it this strongly. My death is much more important than anyone else's death. How could they possibly feel the same way that I do? I'm alone. I've got to deal with this on my own. There's no help. But if I recognize that others have the same feeling I do, then I recognize we share something. We can support each other. It's not a one-way street. So, the long game for me is I try to be grateful for fear in the moment because I recognize my humanity in my fear. And that's enough. I'm a person. There are other people. We have this thing. Let's work together. Thank you.
Great talk. Thank you. Really appreciate you spoke about death. Thinking about that since I was 10 years old every single day. I completely get the dread factor. And that helped me understand the whole fear talk that you're talking about, because somehow I didn't connect that thought, that daily thought to fear somehow. And then I pick up keywords from every Dharma talk, from everybody that gives Dharma. Check yourself, transcend. I got that. But then you got to Reverend NJ said in a talk, in a Dharma talk, and I understood it perfectly. This is not me, let it go. So now I say that every morning, and it helps. But now, you are talking about, hey, fear, let it in. So, what's the difference there? I'm just trying to not dwell on certain things. But now you're saying, let it come on in, yeah, live with it, get with it. So I just would love to hear your perspective on that.
Thank you, Carl. There is this rather involved thing that I love dearly. It's an old teaching that comes from the Zen masters, and it is called the compass of Zen. And I'm not going to get into it now. It's really intellectual and forward-thinking. It's a theoretical thing, but it's interesting to think about. The compass of Zen starts you where you are now, and it takes you to 45 degrees, 180, whatever the next number is, all the way to 360. The teachings and our practice follows this compass without really being aware of it. We progress through stages. One of the stages is transcendence. So the teaching about transcendence is getting you along the compass, but it's not necessarily the end of the compass. As you master things, new things will become aware to you. You won't even need to be taught them. When you get to a certain point, you go, oh, oh no, there's no, okay, let's go. So, and the last thing I'll say about the compass of Zen is as you reach each quarter, you go 90, there's an attachment that's danger there. And you can become attached to 90 and never move forward. If you go to 180, there's a danger of attachment in a different way. When you go to transcendence, there's a transcendence attachment danger. It's a teaching about where you may find yourself, but the pitfalls of being comfortable in any of them until you come all the way around to 360 0. Again, non-duality, it's always there. So, Carl, take heart. Confusion is your friend.
Thank you.
Rebecca.
I just wanted to respond to Carl and then to thank you. But Carl, I think that those are opposites, but not in the way that it seems. I think what Reverend MJ was saying, I don't have to own this title or this label. I think what Brian is saying is important to sit with your feelings and understand them at their base level and get more comfortable with distress. And I think those are, they sound like but they're really very different things. And Brian, I have 100 questions. Thank you so much.
I did a terrible
Thank you
job.
so much for this very profound talk.
Carl, both things are true at the same time. Gotta live with that.
I got that.
Figure it out. You'll get there. And if you don't, that's even better. I just want to put this. You are in deep trouble the moment you think you got it. Okay?
What? Say it again?
Yeah.
So how high up was the diving board?
Oh. Okay. I'm glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that. It was a little stupid hotel diving board. It wasn't even a 1 meter board. It was less than 3 feet off the water. It wasn't the fall. It was the depth after the fall, and it was the sketchy guy. The whole situation. No, it was not good.
Like seriously, what you said about fear reminded me of something that I had I guess something that I had said to myself 2 years ago, that fear, and that's how I rationalized it, fear is, in a weird way, the desire for control. There's something out there beyond us that we don't have control over, and it could be anything. It could be death, it could be a bad SAT grade, it could be a rejection. And there's what comes back to us, that output. We don't usually have the cards over how that's going to play out. And that scares us because it could be counterintuitive to what we would like to happen. Because the thing that really helped me come to terms with it is just, it's normal to have these things. And if you're feeling afraid, that's good, because it means you're human. You have limitations, and it's you acknowledging that there's a part where you end and another thing begins. And what's important is that you don't really, it's not that it exists, but it's important how you show up to meet that fear. Not confront it, but more so reconcile with it or give it an answer. And no one could blame you for trying to give it an answer, or trying to answer back, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I'm gonna close out with this because I want to make sure our guests have some room to so we can meet them. We are limited to the degree that we succumb to our attachments and our fears. That little guy on the board he was right. He had the answer, because his fear, if that's what he was feeling, was transformed by that experience. He immediately, for summer after summer after summer, spent all his time at swimming pools and ponds and lakes and found diving boards and rocks and cliffs to jump off of. Because the next time he was on a board, he had that same feeling, but this time it was excitement. The physical feeling was no different than what was going on that morning, those mornings. When he got on a 1 meter board for the first time, there was that feeling, but he was thrilled by it, and it made him jump. When he decided to do the first front flip, same feeling. He was thrilled by it, and it drove him forward. When he went to the 3 meter board and learned the first 3 meter board backflip, he was full of that same feeling, but he was thrilled by it. It was excitement. It was possibilities. He understood the limitless nature of himself when he stood on the top of that 3 meter board with his back to the water, that feeling in his gut saying, "Here I go." The fear is transformed with what I'm trying to do. With my modeling myself after that kid on the board, the fear is transformed, and I think that's my insight into how it can be used for the betterment of myself and for others. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time.